Hey guys, it's Karen back for day 7 of 100 days of making comics. I Today was a writing day, and here I have the result of my labor in this lovely scrawly piece of paper that you see before you. I will share what I did. If hopefully there are some of you out there who are also interested in the not just the drawing and the inking and the coloring, but also of what goes into the thought process behind crafting the story part of the comic, which, the writing itself. I enjoy listening to that sort of thing, so hopefully you guys will. But first, I should say what 100 Days of Making Comics is for anybody who just stumbles upon this obscure video on my channel. 100 Days of Making Comics is a challenge that was started by Kevin Cross, who you can look him up on YouTube. He's like an awesome illustrator comic book guy. And basically he vowed to set aside at least 30 minutes every day out of every single day for 100 days to work on his personal comic project and not just his client work or his, job work or whatever. And the idea caught on, and more people are taking up the challenge and documenting their daily output or their weekly output, either through YouTube videos or on their blog or their Facebook or whatever. So, so I'm in now 7 days. That means 1 week is gone by. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. And it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. But so what I'm doing is that made me happy. I just realized it's been a week. Oh my gosh. I have a lot more to go. But okay, so I talked earlier, I'm sharing every aspect of this story as I write it. I don't expect to be finished with this comic in the 100 days. And I'm not interested in hiding spoilers because I think it's helpful for maybe people who, I don't know. I just think it might be helpful for people if I'm totally transparent with every single thought that goes on about this. Basically, so the comic, so again, for anybody who hasn't watched my earlier videos, is a private eye detective story, pretty classic, based on hard-boiled noir-y types, although I don't know how noir I'm going to make it, but in my mind, it's the classic Sam Spade, Humphrey Bogart, private investigator, nothing new under the sun here, just something I enjoy reading. So, and then the twist is that it has like a metahuman X-Men-y mutant sort of thing in this universe. So, but not as big as a Marvel Universe thing. It's a very small scale thing. Anyway, I don't have my elevator pitch worked out yet. I will once I actually write this story, or at least get the whole outline done so I know what the heck I'm doing. But so the first plot, I had written already up to the first plot point with my outline. I knew that I had a PI character at the beginning of the story. It opens with him trailing a crime lord. He doesn't know he's a crime lord. He thinks he's just some kind of legit businessman who's having an affair, and his wife has hired Gregor to trail this man and get, surveillance photos so that she can use them to get more money in her divorce. And while he's doing this, he is attacked by some thugs who are turned out to be this man's bodyguards and who are more vicious than what would warrant a regular businessman to have. So he's left for dead, and when he comes to, which is he actually is dead, or so they think. I mean, he is actually like dead, and then he wakes up and he goes back to his office where where his client, the jealous wife, bursts in on him and berates him, and then after she leaves, he has a conversation with an old client who has been lurking in his office to give him a more troubling case about a murder. And it turns out that he works for this mysterious company pretty regularly, but there's not much divulged about that. So that's the first plot point, is that he's given this murder case. Now, that means that he cannot back down until he solves this murder case. That is the driving force of this book. Now, this is supposed to be just a graphic novel. I worked out that my first act is about 12 pages. I mean, or can be about 12 pages long. And the way I work is I work with the traditional 3-act story structure as I understand it, which means that the first act is usually about 25 to 30% of the story, the first part of the story. Then you move into Act 2, which is split. So it turns out to be about 50% of the story. You split in half, the midpoint being the halfway mark of the whole story. And then the last fourth, or however it's not an exact science, but I like these nice, easy to understand numbers because math, and me, not friends, is the final act where everything is the climax and everything is resolved. So I knew that I had set up for myself two different plots, a plot A and a plot B. The plot A being the murder, plot B being the smaller, which is the working for this woman, this jealous wife. Now, because I'm not writing a novel, I don't have a lot of room to tell the story, so I knew that my plot B had to somehow intersect with plot A to make it tight. If I was writing a novel or a movie or something, or like a television show, the plot B, the subplot would be, the place where the main character's love life is explored, or the main character's like something he has to like learn about himself, or something from his past, or stuff like that. Or like if say it's like X-Files, and so the main plot, the plot A would be the monster of the week, and the plot B in that case might be going back to the overarching conspiracy cover-up thing with the smoking man, etc., etc. So I knew that I didn't have the luxury of having a giant plot, so I wanted to tie them together. So here's what I did. I mean, I just laid out my piece of paper, and I started at the top. I wrote plot point 1 at the top, and let me see if I can get something to. Wow, why isn't this brush working? Nothing is working for me tonight. It's unbelievable. All right, here, plot point 1. I literally wrote plot point 1, and I wrote midpoint at the bottom of the page, and I knew I had to get from here to here. So how did I do that? Well, I knew what my twist would be. Usually at the midpoint of the story, something dramatic happens. Usually it's a twist, So at this point, I knew, this would be a really great natural point for plot A and plot B to converge. That would be an interesting twist. So I knew that I had to converge the two there at the midpoint. So let's see, where's my mouse? I'll zoom in for you guys here. Oh, I didn't need my mouse. I could have used my pointer. So I didn't know how to get there, but I knew that I had thought about this in the car. Sometimes the best ideas come while you're driving in your car. So, although, okay, I'm not saying this is like the most genius idea I've ever had, or the most genius idea in the history of the world, but I did have the idea that how the most easiest way to connect the two plots is that, first of all, the murderer works for the businessman that he is set to tail at the beginning, and that how could they be connected, or how could he find this out? Well, obviously, the easiest way would be through the wife, the client. So I knew that Gregor would discover that the wife is having an affair with the murderer. That is the twist. When he learns that the wife is having an affair with the murderer that he is setting out to find. So now, how did I get there? So I knew that at the beginning I had drawn a character. I knew there was going to be a detective that was on the take from Act 1. So he went down to see the detective. So I just tried to think of some like ways that this could all go. Now, I might change some of this. I'm probably not going to, because I really want to get this outline written, and I want to get going on this comic, because I want to actually start actually practicing the comic as well, and I don't want to spend 100 days writing. So I'm going to blow through this, and if this doesn't end up being the best thing I've ever written or the best comic out there, that's okay. For me, this is about practicing. I never thought I was I'm a good artist. I know this, but I never thought, I had this like roadblock in my head that I was not good enough to do sequential art, that I would never be able to do a comic book, even though that's what I had always wanted to do from when I was, since I discovered comics. I mean, I knew about, okay, so like little side story, I knew about comics, obviously, growing up. How could you not? I watched, Superman, Spider-Man, da-da-da-da. They were all in every store you went to. They used to have racks in the stores because I'm in my 40s, and in the 70s and the 80s, they used to have racks in stores and stuff where you could pick up, Spider-Man. But I really wasn't even though I liked superheroes, I was a girl, and it just wasn't something that I was totally into until in my teens. I discovered indie comics, ElfQuest, and Bone, and so in my teens and college years, and in manga, I discovered all that at my local comic shop, and that's where I really, really got into comics. But it was in high school with ElfQuest that I, I think I don't know that I don't know. I haven't listened to all the 100 videos yet. I'm still working my way through everybody, but. Yeah, so it wasn't Spider-Man for me. It wasn't Todd McFarlane. It wasn't the 90s. I was like poo-pooing those guys in the 90s. I was all about indie comics like Strangers in Paradise and ElfQuest and Cerebus, and manga was just coming in on the scene. And so yeah, for me, but it was ElfQuest when I saw ElfQuest, and I was immediately hooked, and I understood that's when I wanted to do comics. That's really when I took off. But then, there was no money in it. I never thought I was good enough. I got a BFA in drawing instead, a fine arts degree, blah, blah, whatever. So this comic is not going to be the best thing I ever produce. This is going to be me in front of everybody trying to learn how to do this thing, which is comics. So I'm not going to hide any of it, and I'm going to try not to judge myself. I'm not going to. That's held me back for 20 years, saying, oh, you're not good enough to do sequential art. It's too hard. You could never do a comic. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do it in front of you as transparent and vulnerable as I can. Let it stink. This is a personal project. Nobody's paying me for this. I don't have to, make it up to some kind of client's standards. It can be lousy, and I know that you guys will be here to cheer me on and allow me to fail. Or, so I have seen that about the 100s, is that you guys are very, very giving. So, yeah. So, okay. So here I'll just run through my thought process. So I knew he had to start at the police station. He learned that the murder victim worked for some kind of crime syndicate. So he was, maybe he was a mob guy, or, a drug guy, or I'm not quite sure yet because I haven't, these are just broad outline bullet points. He's some kind of criminal. No one is talking to the cops. So the cop on the take, the detective on the take, he knows that Gregor has gotten results before and he's in with the company. So he's talking to Gregor. I'm not going to have any of this. No, he's got to pull teeth. I don't have time. We got a cop on the take who's providing him with information. There are no witnesses, so he finds out where it happened. Before he leaves, though, he asks the detective about that crime boss who he was trailing last night, because it's not, most normal businessmen don't have thugs that will kill you to stop you from taking pictures of them. The cops don't have anything on him why he seems legit. He thinks to himself, a legit guy wouldn't keep goons that would kill him, but he keeps silent. He's not going to, he's got his client confidentiality to deal with, and this is his, and he doesn't want to say, oh yeah, well they killed me last night, but here I am, he's not going there. So I know that here then I had, how do I get him to trace the connection back to the cheating crime boss who has been relatively clean in the cop's eyes? So how? Well, the obvious way, I was thinking, the obvious way, obviously, is the wife. Plot B, introduce plot B here. So he goes back to talk to the wife, and he talks about the goons. What did you know that? And she's going to pretend that she's innocent, of course, because she's got a secret. Because in private eye detective stories, everybody's got a secret. And what is the secret she's protecting? That she's cheating on her husband as well. She doesn't want the PI to know that. So, she will not incriminate herself, so there is no apparent connection yet to the murder, and no apparent connection to her. So that's a dead end. So he goes to the crime scene. Now, here's where the meta-human stuff comes in. So I haven't totally narrowed down his powers yet, but he is a superpowered human, and he is being sent out by the company after other superpowered humans. But none of this is out in the open. This isn't like a universe where everybody knows about it. This is all very hush-hush. And he doesn't have like superhero senses. But he does have some ESP, in addition to the like miraculous healing that he has like some ESP type sense. So he goes to the crime scene and I'm like, okay, well, so he has to use his ESP senses. Well, how? I wrote how. I literally wrote that down. Well, how? I don't know what he's got. I haven't figured that out yet. How does he confirm that it was one of the other anomalies, is what I'm calling these, the company jargon for these metahumans is the anomalies. You know, is there a faint smell? Does he trace it by that? Yeah, I had been toying with this idea earlier, but thinking about what his powers might be. So he's got a heightened sense. He's got heightened senses. So yeah, maybe he smells it. And up here I wrote like a dog who can detect cancer cells via scent. He can smell the difference in these metahumans or these altered humans. So he traces. So then I'm like, okay, so he traces it like a hunting hound. He'll trace it. And he will find a witness away from the murder scene who saw the murderer, probably a crazy homeless guy with a wild story about a monster that the cops didn't believe or whatever. But he does, because he knows what he's looking for. So now I haven't quite figured this out, but again, I'm trying to keep this all relatively simple and straight because I don't have a lot of time to develop like really convoluted plot. So the witness will see the bad guy get into a car. Maybe it was one of the ones driven by the goons that Gregor will recognize from the first scene. Or maybe the murder victim spoke into a cell phone, something that connected him to the crime boss's company. Or the thugs, he gets a description of the guy. Somehow, either one of those two ways, and I haven't decided which is the best. If it's the car, then I have to like make a point of showing that early in the first act, like them driving away with the distinctive mark on it. Or it could just be him overhearing it, and he gets a description of the guy. So then he needs to locate and ID the guy, right? So how is he going to do that? Well, again, the obvious way is to go back to the wife. Of course, she's going to deny it, but he can also smell, like, he can also detect that she's lying. I mean, he knew she was lying up there, but now he really knows. And probably using, I mean, even a non-PI could probably tell she was lying at this point, but, you know, or a non-extrasensory PI. These are my things. This is where this was all just total, like, brainstorm stuff. And again, it's probably not, like, the most brilliant thing in the planet, but, well, when she denies it this time, she's clearly rattled, so he tails her. And that is when he discovered that she's having an affair with the murderer, and that's the midpoint where the two plots converge. So I'm thinking of this more as a short story format rather than a novel. So everything does have to be tight. I don't have the luxury, because I have 12 pages or so to have all this happen. It's probably going to be longer than that, but it could be longer. But if I go by the 25, 25, 25, 25 for each story section, that's what it is. So, phew, that was a lot of talking, and that is what I did today. The writing to the plot point. This was all this came together pretty easily. I'm going to have to do a little bit more thinking about how I'm going to resolve all this now that I've twisted all this up together. So, yeah. And this might not end up being the exact midpoint. This is just my starting outline. So things might be adjusted away from this as I go. But that's how I thought this through. I don't want to, like I said, I am definitely gonna, some people like to work seat of their pants. I usually in the past have worked kind of like a mix of a vague plot and seat of my pants. Whenever I've done seat of my pants, I have never finished anything. So I'm really trying to plot everything out. But that doesn't mean that this plot won't change as I write and things organically come to me. This all might change. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but I'm just trying to hammer something out so I can, so like what is it's the 100 days is 3 months, so 30, 30, 30 is 90, and then another 10. So if I can get the plot written, definitely I want to get it written within the first 3 months, or for the first, I said 3, no, wait, 1 month. 3 months, the first month, so it's in thirds. So I only want to spend 30 days on the writing. By the end of 30 days, I'm trying to give myself a goal of it has to be written. The script has to be written. Now, and again, so if I'm operating under the idea of a short story, that is much more doable than like a novel. Who writes a novel in 30 days? I mean, I guess people who do NaNoWriMo do, and I failed at that every time I've tried it. So, but short stories I can manage. So, yeah, so that's my plan. So, but hopefully if I can finish it even sooner, that would be better, because the writing is going to take, I mean, the drawing is going to take forever. So, but, yeah, it's getting really late, and I'm doing lots of ums now, so I think it's time for me to sign off. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. Maybe more writing, maybe some practice drawing on characters, maybe some, I do need to work on the setting. I need to figure out names and things. I mean, it's probably going to be a lot of writing related stuff, which may or may not be of interest to people. So I don't know what tomorrow's update will be like, but I'll be back tomorrow for day 8. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys then. All right. Bye.